I think last week I did a piece about Michael Heseltine on GB News, but Liz Webster has done it so much better. If you don't know Liz Webster, Liz Webster is the person who has organised the farmers into the tractor um, a protest outside Number 10 down Whitehall. She's got tremendous energy, and she's a farmer in her own right. And whoever let Michael Heseltine go on GB News to face Jacob Rees-Mogg was brilliant, and they deserve, at the very least, a front row seat to the end of the Conservative Party. At 91, Heseltine dismantled Rees-Mogg with the precision of an old swordsman who's forgotten none of his technique and lost none of his wit. Calling Jacob William may have been a slip, as I pointed out, but it may have been a Freudian puncture to the balloon of pomposity that surrounds Rees-Mogg's assumed patrician bluster. The moment was Shakespearean, Lear rebuking the court jester who believes himself king. The old king rebuking the young pretender who tries on the crown. Liz Webster's analysis nails it. Heseltine didn't just disagree with Rees-Mogg, he exposed the vacuum behind the slogans. Rees-Mogg insisted that Brexit was not to blame for migration chaos. Heseltine replied with realism. Britain's self-imposed exile from European power structures has left it shouting from the periphery while the decisions are made in the centre. And when Rees-Mogg puffed up Rwanda as a deterrent, Heseltine cut through with wisdom and clear observation. It never sent a single person. Game, set, and elder statesman match. It wasn't simply the content, it was the authority. Rees-Mogg fumbled, hesitated, tried to summon the ghosts of sovereignty, but it was like watching a public schoolboy argue Latin declensions with Cicero. Heseltine's performance was a eulogy for the party he once helped shape, and a requiem for the pretensions of its current stewards. And you think, why did this man not end up as leader? Then there's Kemi Badenoch, the current figurehead of the Conservative Party, now cannibalised by its own contradictions. Once hailed, I have no idea why, as a refreshingly articulate culture warrior, she is now clearly the general of a retreating army. Her failure is not merely strategic, it is philosophical. It'll be a disaster. Yeah, and she's ensured it is. She's evacuated the political field just as Farage planted his flag. Instead of offering substance, she's offered reviews. Instead of values, she's offered jibes or faint imitation. In doing so, she's allowed Reform UK to be the de facto opposition to define the response to the government. Not because Reform is coherent, but because Badenoch is absent. It's one thing to talk about Farage being an absentee politician in Clacton. It's another to talk about Badenoch, who has left her principles, her thought, her politics, her ideas behind. Her rejection of net zero, her silence on crumbling councils, her hollow rhetoric on sovereignty, all play into the narrative that the Conservative Party has become a heritage brand with no product to sell. It's all no, no, no. And yet, Farage does no, no, no so much better and bigger. Webster is right to see this no, no, no as the death rattle of a party that no longer knows whether it's defending markets, monarchy or memes. The flight of councillors, the disappearance of donors, the evaporation of trust all point to terminal decline. And Badenoch is not the problem. She is the proof that the problem is now unfixable. And that, I think, is a much deeper issue. She has ensured that the problem is terminal. By hanging on, by looking after her own career, she has pretty well shoved the dagger in the back of the Conservative Party. Yet, even in the middle of this political wreckage, the most dangerous error is the one that Badenoch now trumpets as truth, the myth that net zero is too expensive, too unrealistic, too inconvenient. And this is fantasy economics. Net zero is not a gimmick, it's the least worst route we have to climate stability. It may not be fast enough. It may require enhancement. But to jettison it because it is imperfect is like scrapping antibiotics because they don't cure every disease. Instead, we should treat net zero as a foundation, not as a finish line. Liz Webster's insight here is subtle but urgent. The climate crisis requires not just commitments but adaptability. We need to build on net zero using faster acting mechanisms, more aggressive energy reform, international cooperation, but abandoning it to appease a reactionary voter base is both economically foolish and morally negligent. And it undermines all the effort that we've made so far. Net zero is not the problem, it's the beginning of the solution. What we lack is political courage and coherent leadership to evolve it. The Conservative Party today resembles nothing so much as the late Roman Empire, grandiose, decadent, riddled with internal schism, and increasingly overrun by the very barbarian populism it once mocked. Heseltine's performance at GB News was not simply an elder statesman scoffing and scolding at a foolish boy. It was a Cassandra moment, truth spoken into the storm of nonsense, whether you want to listen to it or not. Reese Moog's detachment, Badenoch's drift, Farage's demagoguery all contribute to the hollowing out of a once formidable political tradition. And as Liz Webster argues, we are watching the collapse of a false temple, but the real task now is not merely to sneer or mourn, it's to rebuild, to govern, to lead. And that begins by refusing the false choice between slow progress and no progress on climate change, between populism and paralysis in politics, between Brexit and footling around. We need leaders who offer substance, not theatre. We need people who are ready to demand substance, not theatre. We need, quite frankly, to return to Europe. We need, quite frankly, to return to common sense. I think those two things lie together. They may not, but we need to make a move in the direction of at least one of those.